please feel free to email me, tim@peoplelift.com. I'll make it available for every one of the participants here, because this is an evolving state. And it feels like on a day-to-day basis, I need to refresh this deck in some capacity because the pace of innovation is accelerating in a positive way, but it also creates a lot of opportunities for us to discuss where we're at now, what the potentials could be as we look at this. The other part of the takeaway is that I hope that you all have some form of AI moment today. So I'll talk about mine in just a second, but the idea is that I want to just demystify some of the preconceptions of what AI is going to impact our world in the near term. Also opening up the discussion that there's very few folks that could really predict where we're going to be 6 months from now, let alone 12, 18, 24 months from now. So ongoing discussion in an evolving space. So my AI moment. For those that believe in the order of magnitude impact or the Peter Thiel approach of things, I want to share exactly what hit me. So 18 months ago, I'm approached with an opportunity to do something that I do every day in my previous corporate world, which was develop a go-to-market strategy and understand what a total addressable market would be for a potential startup. Jump into the weeds. Does this have traction? Could this idea work in the business world? That is about a 40 to 50 hour project on average for a frontline analyst. I got really good at it in my career, dropped it down to about 30 hours. I decided to test how language models would be able to improve and accelerate this particular project. And I was able to reduce that time from 30 hours to 3. So when you talk about my job that I thought I was pretty good at, that would take on average a little less than a week, I could get done in a morning. And one of those, and all that is based off of is just an understanding that large data computation, large data set understanding is critical to these early stages. And it's also readily applicable for you with proper guidance and with proper understanding of what the capabilities are. Even last week, there was a major release from OpenAI that talked about the reasoning elements for language models. So the idea that not only can we understand large data sets, but we can teach these GPTs to learn and improve and provide tremendous outputs for us. So for me as a business owner, when I see my value add go from 30 hours to 3, that 10x moment was a very revealing one for my business. And I want to encourage everyone else to explore that. So hopefully this will work. This is meant for everybody. So, you got volume?
Okay, so are you ready to dive in? Today's deep dive is all about AI. But this isn't just AI 101. We're going deeper, looking at where we are, where we're going, and what it all means, especially for you.
Sounds like a plan.
And we've got some seriously interesting reading material, tech blogs, economic forecasts, we've even got articles on design thinking, and some really surprising insights on productivity.
It's a real mix. Should be fascinating.
One of the things that jumped out at me going through all this is this almost gold rush feeling around AI right now.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone's trying to stake their claim.
Especially in fields like UX design. Everyone wants the latest AI tool, the biggest promise, but are we missing the bigger picture?
That's the core question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And several of the articles we're looking at today, like why the UX gold rush is over, they really highlight this pressure on designers. Do more, faster, cheaper.
Right, like AI is this magic solution.
Yeah, it's being presented that way.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple.
It's like that productivity paradox that one article talked about. You think all this amazing tech would make us more productive. It turns out
Not always.
not always, and that's fascinating to me. Because we're talking about emergent AI, right? This isn't just programmed instructions. These are machines that are learning on their own, finding their own patterns in massive amounts of data. This piece from Level Up Coding, came from nothing, really got me thinking about that.
It is a fundamental shift. Instead of programming every single step, we're giving AI the fundamental building blocks to learn and to adapt.
And to make mistakes.
And to make mistakes, yeah.
Make mistakes. Context clues. Who all figured out that that was an AI podcast right then and there? Fairly quickly, right? You had that initial, the context should get you an idea. That was 12 research papers, 24 articles dumped into a language model, and then I created a custom GPT that said, summarize this information. And because I don't want a summary that is static and impersonal, I want you to create it in podcast form. And I want you to have opposing views that will share with me your perspective versus a different perspective, and bring that to me so I can share this information with you and share it with a group of participants. Roughly about 30 hours worth of research down to 7 minutes or 13 minutes as it was produced right there. So again, 10x improvement on your ability to stay current with the marketplace. All right. Let's hope we don't get feedback. A little better for everybody in the back or no? Is that it?
Yep.
All right. So an AI moment for everybody, as well as the one that I had for myself. So if you want to stay up to date on how everything is operating, there are technologies that can summarize it on a day-to-day basis with the updates that are happening on a global basis. That kind of information used to go to a Bloomberg or to a news source, and you would have to sift through 45 minutes of information to get one bit of information that's valuable to you, versus custom generating, custom voice, and custom way to ingest that information available right now. So who all has had an AI conversation this week? Okay, pretty good. I haven't had a conversation that hasn't involved some form of AI in the past 12 months with leaders, because there's this equal parts curiosity, equal parts fear. Is this going to have an impact on my world? Is this going to change my job? So we're going to talk about this macro view and get into the specifics, because again, we're here to talk about some talent attraction as well. But earnings calls, well, it's for the S&P. So if you look at it, it's a poor graphic, and Chris has killed me with this great graphics over here. But the velocity of a conversation with an AI is picking up. And it's going to consistently pick up because it has become the forefront for this discussion, moving from optimization into revenue production. And that adoption curve has been a very quick one, which we'll talk about here shortly. Because we're not only talking about, does this make an impact or could it help me? It is now, how are we going to implement it and do it responsibly? That is a shift that's happened over the past 18 months, and this adoption curve is only accelerating. And there are two types of the adoption curve. There's the invasive one from Google, where they just stick it in your software in Chrome and say, guess what, you have it in there, good luck. Anybody else use QuickBooks around here, or any small? Yeah, they dropped AI into your program without even asking for your consent, and said, oh yeah, click this box if you want to keep using the software. So there is the direct inject, where you have no option to look at it. But then you also see the infrastructure, vertical and horizontal businesses that are looking at this problem and saying, we're going to disrupt every part of the ecosystem. So where are we at? On the investment side, venture capital as well. Venture capital is accelerating their investments in the amount of AI-based technologies. Anybody heard of NVIDIA? I hope you had some stock in them earlier in the year, because it would really played off for you pretty well. Silicon Valley is obviously having a ton of investment in chips, especially in this county. You can start to see this even in the data center that's popped up. Data center acquisition is going to be a huge part of the economy moving forward. Anybody hear about the power plant, the nuclear power plant that Microsoft has purchased to fund one of their data centers? Talk about a weird way for nuclear to come back into the ecosystem from a power and an energy perspective. But here's where I would like to just leave it off, is that the forward-leaning organizations in this world, the Silicon Six, or however you want to call it, have quintupled their investment and are continuing to invest in the space, meaning it is only going to become more integrated into our ecosystem every day. So macro view, where are we? The early days are behind us. Those days where it was, we don't know, those are gone. It is now, how can we responsibly roll this technology out to our ecosystem? Because we have crossed that chasm. I like to consider myself an early adopter. I like to look at tech, I'm curious, I like to see how it impacts my world. I fit in that millennial generation, right? And thank you for not knocking millennials. That was the first conversation I've had where millennials weren't hit in some way, so thank you for that. But the idea is this, everybody. AI is part of our ecosystem and is part of our work day to day, whether it is being brought into your office via device, or whether it is being funded as part of an initiative within your particular business. It is entering and it is permeating our world every single day. So I know it's a tough graphic to see over here, but this is good old Gardner height curve. And if you look at some of the LLM tech, it seems like it's lost a little bit of its luster. But so where are the emerging tech areas which are fascinating, which are in simulations, casual AI, the conversational AI? These pieces are starting to be adopted within businesses. But the reality from a macro market is a 5x increase by 2030. So we're talking about a very familiar marketplace that we've all been through. And just in case, if you don't like that particular graphic, I view us, for the most people, are right around this little entering point of, hey, it could be cool. But the reality is a lot of folks are all bringing this back. So why is it not sunshine? Quite frankly, it hasn't worked as well as we thought it would. 27% of businesses are starting to see return on investment in AI right now. But we've seen this adoption curve over time. And I'll bring it back into more of a technology view in just a second. If we look over here, bottom left in the internet curve, this is in 1995, right? AI adoption is following the adoption curve of the internet, which means it's almost like the 90s all over again.
And it's good for us Gen Xers.
There you go. One of the largest pieces of economic growth. We won't talk about the bubble, we'll get there a little bit later. But the idea is this. This is not new. This curve, this adoption, this integration is not into our businesses. You started to see it several years ago. It is not a new topic, but how we are looking at this, and I see we as a business community, is that it is the 90s all over again. And that shift from should we do this is now how can we do this responsibly? And that has happened in 18 months. I was just talking a little bit ago about pricing discussions. We've had different simulation discussions. How can we leverage it for automations and productivity? The productivity piece is what's interesting because the market is moving more towards how to drive revenue and or operation efficiencies. Meaning, we believe it can help us be more productive, which we've already given a couple of 10x examples. How do we grow our business leveraging AI? And if that is the bellwether, if that is the canary in the coal mine right there, it is how do we grow business through AI. And if you looked at this particular graph, you look at every part of the business is being looked at in some capacity to bring in AI into their ecosystems, whether that be talent attraction, engagement, retention, coaching, pricing discussions, executive strategy sessions, summary documents, every piece of the work experience. So while I have a little bit of time here, I want to go through a couple of specific use cases. I've got a broader amount here because there's a good amount of different businesses that are represented here. This information is aggregated from different sources, from Google, KPMG, Boston, Bain, so if you want to have any citations on this, happy to provide them in the appendix. But the short answer is, I like to look at it from Kathy Wood's perspective, from Mark Investment. It is 4 in 10 executives use some form of large language model technology currently, which means 6 out of 10 are going to get left behind. Very aggressive statement, but the idea is simple. If you're not leveraging it right now, you will be on the back half of the adoption curve and playing catch up. The good news is 2 years. That's roughly how long the market has been at this space, even though AI has been around for decades. 2 years. You're not playing a ton of catch up, at least in this space. So I'll go quickly because I want to get the talent attraction retention here. And this is from Google here a little while ago. And I want you to notice that customer service and inventory end up being the 2 easy use cases. Why? massive amounts of information that need to be translated and understood, and large data sets that can be aggregated and displayed in different particular ways. These are very easy ways for the new tech to understand as we begin to have a business impact. Manufacturing, huge around here. Document search and synthesis. How much information is walking out the door from a retention perspective that AI could help us retain and keep internally within a business? Customer service automation. I'll be upfront, I hate chatbots right now for customer service. I'll be the first person to say it. However, once we start to see some progress in how that operates, you can start to see where the value would be, especially in those customer service centers. Media. Obviously, Trillis Studios have a huge impact here in Fayette County. Won't say anything to the contrary. But you're also starting to see that hesitation within media, because what you can do to create, say, a 30-second intro to a movie, or how do you create a short skit, or whatever these are. The ideation potential for this information is incredible. Content summarization, graphic creation, all of those areas are on the table and creating a lot of very interesting discussions that are happening. Anyone work in banking here? I didn't catch that. We got one? All right, I got you. So Deutsche Bank, large data sets, complicated customers, complicated geographies, fits a very nice use case for how this technology can be leveraged. But the reality is that it's already working in your bank, and it has been working in the stock market for quite some time. Aerospace and supply chain, and figuring out how to manage that mess. Anybody have any supply chain issues from 2020 to 2024? Yeah, everybody did, right? There's a lot of opportunity that's existing in this space to be able to help improve not only the bottom line, but just the information. Where are my products? Where is everything? So I could set expectations to our customers. Now, I'll apologize, this is what Keynote does when it translates to PowerPoint, so sometimes it degrades the image a little bit on this, but Talent Edge Weekly did a better job than I could ever do, giving me 12 different use cases in HR. So I won't sit there and read this slide to you. But every part of the employee experience is being impacted by the ability or the opportunity for this particular technology. And sorry that I cut off here, but I want to also talk about the funding for early stage organizations, especially within recruiting. Recruiting has been leveraging matching technology and sorting technology, scanning of resumes, prioritizing for 20 plus years. There's been a lot of different varieties of this. I was around when everyone said LinkedIn was going to destroy recruiting. There was never going to be a recruiter again after this. And here we are, 20 years later, still operating it as a tool. But one of the fundamental things that changes are agent interviews. So there's a human loop in interviews that this is fundamentally changing. This company called Micro One. They've just raised about $3 million on an $83 million valuation, and their entire premise is a $6 interview. I know there are HR leaders in here that know that is a lot more expensive to conduct even a good interview or a failed interview at this particular juncture. The reason being is that they're leveraging agent and agentic technology to create faster and more on-demand interview experiences. Anybody have a dev team? Offshore, nearshore? Do they work 9 to 5, standard hours? Are they available on normal hours? Imagine being able to have a custom technical interview at 2 o'clock in the morning that was able to synthesize not only the text, the language, the context, but provide a technical interview on demand when that person wanted it. And then was able to summarize, share that information so the hiring manager had an interview in that inbox first thing in the morning. That fundamentally changes how we attract talent, because we can interview you where you're at, when you want to, on demand. That exists currently. That demo freaked me out. As a B2B staffing guy, as one of my businesses, I look at this and say, I can't compete with $6 an interview on a fundamental level. So how are we going to get there? Now, for all of our engagement folks, there's a ton of information here. I'll backlink it for you as well. I believe one of the biggest pieces is how do we improve human experience with technology as a tool, not a replacement. Now, I know that kind of is contradictory for some folks, but I do view this as almost like as jetpacks, if you will. How can we improve our human experience by allowing us to spend more quality time with people? If we're not writing notes on the side, if we're not trying to coordinate endless amounts of interviews, and we're focused intently on having the best interview experience possible, I believe that is a great use case for adding AI into your stack. Not to replace recruiters, but to enhance the recruiting experience. Because I believe, just like in every curve that you see this, is that you'll actually see job creation. Who here has been told AI is taking our jobs? Oh, that's not enough people. I think it's everyone. Because our first reaction to this kind of disruptive tech is going to be this way. So the example I'll use is in 1992 when I'm coming up and I'm trying to sell a web service to a retail organization, say, you need to have a digital storefront to convert your customers. They're going to tell me, I have done business for decades without any of that. I don't need any of this whatsoever. By 1996, that has gone from, I don't need you, you're not relevant, to, if we don't have this, we will get left behind. That same kind of curve is existing from an adoption standpoint. Maybe not from a digital storefront, but how recruiters work from here. Got a little bit of a graphic one, keynote, thank you very much, PowerPoint, but the short answer is this. I believe that recruiters' jobs and talent jobs are going to be enhanced with the amount of data that is available within the process and is able to create more human connections. More time spending what we should be doing, which is qualifying and selling tremendous talent as a reason to come work here. We just got done hearing about there's a deficiency in the talent market. We need to have a more human experience to help those folks join our company. Automation's not going to give someone a reason to feel good about joining us. It's about the human connection throughout the particular process. And AI will allow it to do this. But if you look at what the ability we could do now, like lead scoring, or insight analysts, or interview rankings, or more importantly, are we having bias problems? I think one of the best opportunities I think AI offers for us is a baseline so we can all evaluate folks equally. Because you catch me, first coffee in the morning, I'm probably pretty energetic. You catch me at the end of the day along the interviews, I'm probably not so happy about everything. That emotional change is something that AI can help create a baseline as well. But then for the leaders here, there's also a huge point on job creation. New jobs pop up. For every automation piece, there's usually 1 to 1.5 jobs that is created in the near term. Because we don't trust machines to do everything, we have to have a human loop. And those humans have to have a loop because, goodness, we're humans, we need management style on this side. And then from that, we're gonna have entire departments that are gonna be stood up. So did anybody ever work as a business analyst back in the 90s, by any chance? All right, and then your job became a product manager, which then moved into different variations of this. That is the same kind of track that you're going to have, is the baseline skill on how to build business case and grow products will be renamed and moved up. AI ethics researcher, that could be a compliance function that sits within HR. All of these functions have to have the opportunity to have the ability to be created over the near term. And I'm going to leave you with this stuff. Because if the market has moved from does it work to it works well to now I want to grow my business, the leadership decisions you have to make are becoming a little more clear. But how you adopt, and I'll use this straight from KPMG's deck on this end, and I believe this is the mantra that I would like to see the marketplace, is being bold while being responsible. You don't need to drop your IP of your business into an LLM and hope for the best. That is a terrible idea. You don't need to give secrets of your business to a machine and say, hey, by the way, we have no idea where your data is going. We probably need to have a little bit more of a constraint around that. At the same time, going with Kathy Wood again, if you are the 4 that's using it, you are a 4 out of 10, you are taking leaps ahead of your competition. If for those 6 who have not adopted it, you're gonna get left behind. So I'll leave this with you because we want to have larger credibility and larger brands that stay behind this. And I absolutely believe this. This is the most deterministic time for business growth that we have seen in decades. It is on the bus time, team, because fundamentally, if we're able to do things more efficiently, effectively, and perhaps a little with more of a human element, that does serve our community and does serve us well. And this is what I wanted to share with you all today. So zoom out. I try to be quick for you, Leonardo, because I know we're running on time, but macro questions around any of this stuff, because again, 70 pages and 18 minutes is probably not the best way of going through it, but.
What is one of your top AI engines to use?
For me personally, or for the companies that I work with, I want to just be a little clear.
Can you give me one of both?
Sure. For me personally, I like to custom build. So I like to have, because I've got 3 different companies that I operate, where it pulls the challenges and opportunities for each of those businesses from our particular leaders, summarizes it into a weekly strategy doc, sent to me first thing on an email, 8 o'clock in the morning, where I can say, hey team, here's how we're gonna approach each and every week. So it's a simple workflow automation that allows me to gather all of the critical information from the disparate parts of my business, distills it down to something digestible, and allows me to ask better questions. That's my favorite piece, because I don't like being blindsided with something that's going on in the business, if you will. For our customers that we implement, I love simulations. You'll hear me say this, it's a whole different topic on this end, but there's technology out there right now that allows you to simulate reactions to images or to text or to video that will allow you to create better marketing opportunities or better marketing outcomes. So that to me is where I like to recommend folks, is to look into the simulation piece around that kind of UX experience that that podcast was talking about. Because we all want to feel more connected. We all want to feel personal outbound. Or that it makes sense. Who here has had a blast email from someone who's calling you something else or has nothing to do with your industry? That is a terrible outcome for automation. Where if you can create highly custom personal messages that makes you feel included, I feel like that's a great one for businesses to implement. I could share it, it's shared in the appendix of this as well. Yes?
Communications and PR and like we play with
Yep.
AI all the time, you know, all the stuff that'll generate photos, do whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So how do you convince your IT people that it's not this big scary thing, that they should actually let you be able to try and use it?
Huh. So how do we, just so I can understand, the fear, getting over fear.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's mostly from our IT folks, it's not necessarily from like leadership or anything in there, but like, they don't want it on the system corrupting anything because, you know.
Yes. Okay, so big box. We should not haphazardly just drop this into your systems because there's a huge amount of risk for bad behaviors and bad outcomes if you don't have a very responsible approach to how you're going to implement it. So just macro view. How do I convince folks on this side? Normally I like to open up AI Copilot and say, hey, by the way, you want to build an app or you want to build a function? Let's build something together and go do a side-by-side opportunity. So it's more of a collaboration opportunity. But the other piece that goes around InfoSec or security, then people that always flag me in the middle of a sales process are my CISOs. Do I have any CISOs in here? Any security officers? Okay, you have every right to be concerned. There is a ton of bad actors out there that will unfortunately leverage this tech to do the probably not so great thing. So if you're talking about how do you integrate it, is it if it's in your coding stack or if it's into your general how can we use it? This is where I think HR has a huge opportunity to lead from the front from a compliance and adoption standpoint. How can we responsibly use this? So small box, small opportunity wins, and then partnering with your executive team to build in very strict guardrails on how it's going to be used. Because we're still, again, not in the early days, but it is still wild, wild west for a lot of these new techs that are coming up, especially if folks are using new and upcoming LLMs in the marketplace.
little bit of a high-level answer for you. I'm happy to chat with you afterwards, more specific, so.
With that, we're going to get ready to transition into our next speaker. So just here's an update on the schedule. We're going to hear from Jonathan, and then we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back with the rest of the programming. The other thing I would just add, so many of you know I came here by way of, or back to Georgia by way of a long stint in Maryland. And you don't get any more paranoid than being around cybersecurity contractors at NSA. And one of the things that was mentioned at a meeting that we had involving them is that this particular contractor, much like you have just simply you got open source, AI, which kind of gets it from everywhere. Well, my term, perhaps not the most technical one is one where you close it. And in essence, he uses AI for a lot of their proposals because he's in the BD side. But again, it's very technical because they're also operating in a cleared space where you have to have security clearances and whatnot. But ultimately, when he's doing proposals and everything, he's only, I guess, pulling information that's within his company. So thus, that satisfies some of the security piece because they're not going and getting just stuff that's on the open side. It is just things that they have prepared, that they've written, work that they've performed. So it's certainly a